I always thought only Bauhaus and the four members could play that. So I tried to gather them. I'm not aiming to be Bauhaus, but it's my art. Peter Murphy wasn't a rock star as often known. His deep, chilly voice and haunting look introduced Gothic rock to the world, despite his lack of world tours or radio singles. He was Bauhaus essence, the band that invented Gothic while England chased punk. He sung for the forgotten, so they dubbed him the Lord of Darkness, not because he was fierce. You're missing a deep and tragic story if you think Peter Murphy was just an 80s fashion icon. He suffered despair, was jailed for drug use, collapsed on stage from a heart attack, and lived in solitude in Turkey like a Sufi monk for decades. In 2025, when his health was deteriorating and his voice was no longer good, he launched a new record as if singing were his only means to survive. Peter Murphy, a Gothic legend and misfit, braved the darkness and turned loneliness into something remarkable. Nobody has fully told this story. Until now. Early life. Peter John Joseph Murphy was born on July 11, 1957, in Northampton, England, an industrial town in the Midlands where most families worked physical labor and were devout. Same for the Murphys. Peter was raised in a devout Catholic family as the youngest of 7. Little room for difference or dreaming. His parents were kind, but they valued order, morals, and silence. They didn't discuss feelings. They didn't question odd kids. All but Peter followed a prearranged itinerary in the house. He was silent and stared out the window throughout primary school, sometimes murmuring poetry in class that no one understood. He never felt connected at school. He was quiet and reclusive, and classmates called him the weird one. Sports were his weak spot. Group activities unnerved him. And societal order and Catholic disciplinary lectures just made Peter feel out of place. It wasn't rejection that silently hurt him. His inability to communicate. Peter later recalled that he never felt he could reveal his inner world with anyone, even his family, during school. Since he kept everything inside, he sought escape through drawing, sound, and metaphysical symbols that others missed. Music came to him from radio and quiet, not instruction. Peter announced, "I'm going to be a singer," while driving with his family at age 14. No one reacted. Nobody brought it up again. Peter heard his own voice for the first time. Instead of studying painting, he worked at a printing company, a boring but livable job. He reunited with Daniel Ash, old classmate and creative musician. Daniel observed something Peter's family may never have: an unusual, deep, emotive voice. They started making music in a small Northampton rehearsal space. Peter had no music theory knowledge. He lacked vocal training, yet he needed to express himself urgently. Not methodical, not educated, not conventional, that sensation established the groundwork for a band the world had never seen before. Bauhaus was just the start. Early career Peter Murphy had no artistic direction after leaving school and worked at a tiny Northampton print company. No band, no music education, and no stage experience. A 1978 reconnection with old friend Daniel Ash changed everything. A talented, experimental guitarist, Daniel needed a vocalist for a new project. Peter had little performance experience, but Daniel thought his deep, frigid voice conveyed remoteness like no other rock singer of the time. Peter joined. They formed Bauhaus 1919 with David J. on bass and Kevin Haskins on drums, inspired by the German art movement of the same name, eventually shortened to Bauhaus. They didn't play pop or punk. Bauhaus made gloomy, minimalist, unstructured music. From their debut recording, this band was unique. Bela Lugosi's Dead, recorded 6 weeks after the band started, was 9 minutes long, featured no chorus, and had an unpredictable pace. The singer's repetitious, drawn-out songs described Dracula's demise, sounding more like a seance than a concert. At first, no record label wanted to release it, but John Peel's radio show broadcast a demo, and the response was overwhelming. The song didn't chart, but it went viral underground. Many consider it the unofficial birth of Gothic rock. 3 Bauhaus albums were released between 1980 and 1982. In the flat field, 1980, Raw, Abrasive, and Hard to Digest, Mask, 1981, Electronic Elements and Experimental Sounds, The Sky's Gone Out, 1982, Jazz and Ambient Exploration. Peter Murphy was the band's visual and emotional center, but not the main songwriter. He was eerily mesmerizing on stage, standing still with a fixed gaze, occasionally lifting a hand or tilting his head. His speech was cold and emotionless. Cold and distant, it seemed to come from a place no one had ever gone. That look, along with ghostly white makeup, spiked hair, and black cloaks, made him a style idol for young artists seeking an escape from punk's aggressiveness and pop's commercial gloss. Audiences were captivated or repulsed. Bauhaus was remembered because they had no intermediate ground. Inside the band, tensions rose. Murphy gradually distanced himself from the other three members, who were close friends before Bauhaus. He rarely wrote music or arranged it, and he was sometimes an outcast in his band. He was the most famous, but that made internal relationships weaker. After their 1983 fourth album, Burning from the Inside, Murphy's tuberculosis absence made the fissures obvious. After their farewell show at Hammersmith Palais in London, Bauhaus split, ending a brief but powerful phase. Peter Murphy left without a strategy. No new band or large manager supported him. However, his voice was unique and left a visual mark on Gothic music after 5 years. That was just the beginning. When he returned alone, his music would go far beyond Bauhaus' cellar roots. Breakthrough career. In 1983, Bauhaus disbanded, leaving Peter Murphy out of a world he never completely belonged to, even as its leader. Without bandmates, backing band, or hit, he started over with a distinct voice and a defined image, a Gothic icon, the quiet figure in the dark. Early in his solo career, things were tough. He struggled with his 1986 debut album, Should the World Fail to Fall Apart, as most people still considered him as a Bauhaus member rather than an independent artist. However, Peter experimented with rhythms, orchestration, singing style, and, for the first time, commanding his own space. A turning point was 1988's Love Hysteria. The album didn't sound different, but Peter Murphy was more passionate, accessible, and romantic than on prior releases. All Night Long was radio-friendly with just enough pop to hook the ear, yet remained dark. He seemed to be testing if the world could adore some of him. Deep's release a year later revealed the answer. Peter Murphy finally got a hit with Cuts You Up, a single with mesmerizing viola lines and an odd but appealing composition. It topped the U.S. modern rock charts and marked his independence from Bauhaus. American audiences saw Peter as more than a legend. He was an artist who could sing about loss and longing with a peacefulness that stopped people. People realized Murphy wasn't just a shadow after months-long tours and many magazine appearances. He knew them and lived within them, so when he opened up, the light felt rare and real. Success continued with 1992's Holy Smoke. Murphy chose not to follow the alternative rock movement. His 1995 album Cascade was calmer, more introspective, and electronic. He responded to mainstream rock's rising cacophony. Not everyone liked this adjustment, but Peter didn't care. He and his wife, choreographer Bayan Murphy, went to Istanbul permanently, left the media, and pursued spirituality. He made meditation, Sufism, and music for truth, not markets. Dust, 2002, was this phase's most obvious effect. A hard CD featuring Middle Eastern traditional instruments and little rock. Its artistic merits and commercial unviability split Western commentators. Peter considered it one of his rare creations that broke with the past. After winning 9th in 2011 and Lion in 2014, Peter Murphy felt that he had finished the cycle. Still performing rock music on stage, but without an image. Though weaker, his voice was still there. The extended, sometimes shaky notes encouraged listeners to trust in the guy behind them. A person who had experienced multiple emotions, not just a remnant. In 2025, Peter published Silver Shade. No hype, announcements, or marketing. But each song had a weird serenity that only someone who had survived sadness, disease, and a lifetime of composing music to survive could express. Less loyal listeners termed it music only Peter Murphy could make. His refusal to conform to business or nostalgia demands is possibly his greatest achievement. Personal life. Peter Murphy moved away from the music business and the media to live a quieter, more real existence as his solo career stabilized. Murphy went permanently to Istanbul, Turkey, in the mid-1990s for love, not escape. His wife, Turkish contemporary choreographer Bayan Murphy, is famous. A National Dance Theatre artistic director. An early decade art endeavor brought the two together, and they've been together ever since. They have 2 children, rarely seen in the media, although Bayan is evident in Peter's music and personal life. Moving to Istanbul was big. An English artist from a devout Catholic background was unprepared for a Muslim-majority country. But Peter felt a weird sense of intimacy, as if he had found serenity and faith that the West had never afforded him. While there, Peter studied Sufism, a mystical offshoot of Islam that emphasizes meditation, music, and spirituality. He never publicly converted or branded it. In rare interviews, he typically discussed self-purification, not just from show industry demands, but from his ego that kept him as the godfather of Goth. He almost disappeared from the media at this point. He avoided award shows, fashion displays, and politics. Pete only spoke when he had anything to say. The 2002 album Dust, recorded exclusively during this time, was almost entirely commercial-free. No hits, hooks, or marketing. To his true followers, Dust was a spiritual diary, a body of music produced by someone who lived differently, thought differently, and possibly believed in a different universe. Not everything was peaceful. Living in isolation rendered him prone to misunderstandings in the press and among Gothic music fans who wanted him to maintain the previous image. Some felt Peter had become quirky, distant, and hard to approach, but those close to him said it was a phase he needed to maintain his inner equilibrium. Murphy was arrested in Los Angeles in 2013 for causing a traffic accident and possessing drugs. His calm image was shaken by the occurrence, not its severity. Not denied by Peter. He admitted fault, sought treatment, and never reoffended. Later asked, he answered, "People aren't straight lines. Everyone takes turns, and we don't always pick the appropriate one." That wasn't the only mistake. Peter hurled a water bottle into the crowd and left a 2016 Swedish concert after a fight with the lighting technician. Security intervened, and the night ended in turmoil. He offered no apology or explanation, only supposition, tiredness, medicine side effects, or something deeper he couldn't control. After the incident, rumors spread that he was depressed, lost emotional control during tours, yelled at workers, or skipped rehearsals. Some previous collaborators labeled him tough, uncooperative, and always refusing, but others disagreed. A longtime fan said he didn't act like a rock star after that night. He appeared to be struggling internally. Peter Murphy never considered his personal life a performance. He rarely mentioned his family or showed his kids. For nearly 3 decades, he lived peacefully with his wife, raised his children, and sought a different meaning of success. One based on his capacity to stay together despite music and life's continual changes, not album sales. It was hard, but he chose it. And unlike many artists of his generation, Peter has never distanced himself from those choices, right or wrong. Influence and legacy. Peter Murphy is most often credited with founding Gothic rock. Why? He never claimed the title. Not because he published the most albums or won the most prizes, but because he was the first to make gloom in music livable. At Bauhaus, Peter was both voice and image. The room was captivated by a pallid, immobile statue on stage. He wasn't screaming or trying to lure the throng. His presence was ceremonial, as if he were summoning something deeper in the human spirit. That style influenced Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, Dave Gahan, Depeche Mode, Marilyn Manson, Interpol, and Japanese visual kei bands. Peter's Bauhaus and solo songs were never simple to listen to. It was frigid, dark, and unstructured, sometimes rejecting the idea of a song. Because of that, he became a light for the marginalized. For many fans, Peter was more than a singer. He represented loneliness and alienation. Internal battle between faith and ego, art and commercial consumption dread. From the start, he was called the Godfather of Goth, a title he lived with and attempted to escape. Peter said he didn't appreciate goth fashion or labels. He didn't care about black clothes or earrings, but accepting sorrow without striving to make it bearable. Peter Murphy had never sold records like The Cure or had Joy Division's media reach, but his effect was deep. His late career acoustic gigs with just his voice and guitar never sold out venues, but each audience member felt they had witnessed something unique. Peter Murphy is still around, just slowed down, and returned through song, not loudness. After nearly a decade of seclusion, the father of Gothic rock returned to his roots in 2024 with a series of unexpected but deeply moving undertakings. He recorded the unexpected duet Let the Flowers Grow with Boy George in late 2024, made listeners nod in approval. The song resembled a conversation between two pop and alternative Golden Ages icons who had fallen and returned to declare they were still alive, loving, and singing. Peter returned to the spotlight in March 2025 with the nostalgic single The Art Room Wonder, developed with Tool bassist Justin Chancellor. In its lyrics, he described a lonely youngster in an art classroom, alone with his brushes, canvas, and an incomprehensible solitude. Song seemed like a late confession, unsent diary entry, and bridge to something more. Peter Murphy released Silver Shade on May 9, 2025, 11 years after his last studio album. Critics called it complex, somber, and full of life. Trent Reznor and Danny Carey contributed to the Youth of Killing Joke-produced album. More importantly, it showed that Peter still had much to say in the most musical, least restricted way. The record combines post-punk dreaming and spiritual introspection, said Mojo. Silver Shade was a dark but lovely melodic protest, according to Spin. For longtime supporters, this was crucial. Peter Murphy's voice retained the gentle intensity they adored. Peter abruptly canceled his summer 2025 tour shortly after the album's release. Includes European and UK dates. The reason? Unsolved health difficulties, no details, no complaints, just a simple notice, yet supporters understood. Peter is never forceful. He prefers to remain mute if he can't perform adequately. He appears in rare interviews like the 14-page record collector article Away from the Stage, or the June 2025 in Ethmojo chat. Strangely, all these accounts show a different Peter. No, not the sharp-edged gothic image, but a man searching his psyche with each song and pause. Star Peter Murphy has never been easy to grasp. He didn't write music to top the charts, didn't perform to satisfy the public, and didn't try to maintain an image to survive entertainment. He entered music as a stranger with darkness, poetry, faith, and unhealed wounds. Peter Murphy didn't follow famous artists from Bauhaus to Silver Shade, post-punk England to mystical Istanbul, rowdy nights to quiet recording spaces. He followed a calling that only he heard. Under pressure, he became addicted to his shadow. He rose anew, not to reclaim the status of goth rock icon, but to remain human, frail, devout, stubborn, and alone, like his songs. Peter Murphy can become a legend without a tribute show. He needs simply a microphone, a studio, and an inner world that never learned to be quiet. Do you ever hear nighttime cuts? Have you recognized yourself in his brittle, hurting voice? Leave your comments and share this with friends who need to hear it. Thanks for watching. See you next video. Goodbye.